So guys, the BRs have been implemented already. Yes, as you see right here, we have the extension for the ground forces to 12.7. So you will see a lot of these vehicles going to 12.3, 12.7, overall will have an increase, as you can see. So yeah, for example, the M1A2, the normal one, remained at 12.0, which is a little bit odd, but okay. And then the SAP at 12.7, 12.7. You can see that some of the AA systems, they got up to 12.3, but some of them, like, for example, the Buck, got to 12.7. Obviously, this will depend on the performance of these vehicles, right? So yeah, 12.3, 12.7. So great changes that you're gonna see. This is amazing. It really does help a lot, right? There are some BRs that are just a little bit weird, but it makes sense as well. Most of them, I just hope these rains upwards, right, on the BRs over here to basically have some balance a little bit more as well. And there are some other things, like for example, the Leopard 2 PL got the DM53 that I don't think he had before, right? So yeah, you can see right there, you got a 12.3 BR. And another thing that I really loved, this is very clear on Israel, but it can be on other nations as well, is that now aircraft will be a little bit better as well. Why is that? Because, for example, guys, if you see, for example, here, you have the 12.3 Merkava 4s, and then the 12.7 Merkava 4M, right? The best one. And then we have the 11.3s. 10.0s and stuff. If you go to the aircraft that you can take over here now will change a little bit, because before, for example, you were using at 10.0, for example, the 8, and then you got up to 11.3 with the Merkava 1 and 2, you got to the 11.3, right? You will use something like the Kurnas, something like that, right? But then when you get to the higher BR here, because you basically have this big jump between 11.3 and then the 12.0 before, and then it was just 12.0 until the end, right? You were basic. There was no reason to use some of these vehicles. For example, why would you use the Nets, which is a 12.0 vehicle, or the Kurnas 2000 that it's an 11.7 even, if you could just use the Sufa that it's a 12.7 and the Ram, the F-15I that are 12.7s, much better air-to-ground capability, and it was already well past the cap point of the top tier of tanks, right? But now with this differentiation of tanks over here, you can use, for example, at 12.7, at 12.0, the Nets itself, there's no reason to increase your BR because the max BR range now for tanks is 12.7. So you can use the Nets for a little bit, use the normal Mavericks and bombs and everything, which is a little bit worse than the Sufa, obviously, a lot worse. And then when you get to the 12.3, for example, you can try to find a 12.3 aircraft over here. You do not have too many, but for example, the Block 60 Kafir over here, you can use it. A little bit better, maybe. I would still use probably the Nets, but still. And then when you get to the 12.7, then you do the jump or the Sufa, right? So the aircraft can accompany a little bit more the progression where you are going. With the helicopters, this might happen as well. For example, when you get to the 12.0, why would you use a 12.7 helicopter, right? So yeah, the helicopters got increased as well. So you can see right here, instead of the older BRs, now it is 13.0. So for example, at first, when you get to the 12.0, I will use the Saraf, but then when I get to the top tier Merkava, I would go to the 13.0 Blackhawk, for example, or something like that, right? So this can go with many other BRs and everything. I mean, look at this. You can use a 12.0 the K50 because it changes, right? So as you can see, you don't have a 12.0 vehicle over here too much unless you are using premiums over here, but you get the point, right? You can do this progression of aircraft vehicles as well, which is great, okay? So you can see that the changes are indeed here. You can click on it and you will see the vehicles that got changed, of course. The majority of the 12.0s got up to 12.3 or 12.7, as you see. So it's a decompression, right? The majority of them, as you see, the majority of the top tier ones especially, And then, of course, there are some other ones that got bumped up as well, like, for example, 11.7s that got to 12.0, some 11.3s that got to 11.7, and some changes, like, for example, the DM53 added to the Leopard 2 PL, right? The VT4, for example, they are saying that in the few weeks after the release of the next major update, it will be placed after this WZ1001E, right? So, and the rank will increase. So, if you see here, these VT4 will come after this tank, which is interesting, I gotta say. Apparently, the effectiveness of it is pretty huge. I think it's kind of weird, but it makes sense because of the difference in BR. Look at it. So it needs to be another tank here that it's not this one, right? But yeah, just great changes. And it continues down here. There are some other things, like, for example, the Panzer S1, the spawn points cost modifiers have been removed, you know. The unit now costs the same as any other AA system in the same battle rating, and the ADATs as well. Yeah, as well for helicopters. So the top dogs of helicopters that were at 12.3, now they are at 13.0. Again, bringing a little bit more balance, because when you are using 11.3, 11, 0.7, you probably shouldn't be seeing these types of helicopters. So that's helpful as well, right? There was some things that got changed for the worst. For example, the VT4 now, it's 400,000 RP because it got its BR increased, right? So there will be some vehicles that the economy will change. And there is something that they actually added and they didn't talk about. For example, here in the Russians, they are saying that in the upcoming major update, they will change the placement of some of these vehicles. So the Strela and the Oza, for example, the Chinese PGZ-04, some AAs here like Sedan, Mistral, the ZSU-23, the Lorraine, the Elkbis, and then the Alf Watt over here, the LVKV42. So a lot of vehicles are going to be changed. See, like, I don't know how, like, for example, this one, how they're going to change. The Hovet is way worse than the Shuka. So I don't know exactly. I mean, M56, M50, M247, Chaparral. So a lot of vehicles here that will be changed. They don't say how or where or when. I mean, they're saying when in the upcoming major update, but still, it is something that it's pretty interesting. And another thing is that they actually implemented, if I'm not mistaken, the changes to the British Tech Tree as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they say, like, previously announced that rearrangements of the British Ground Forces Tech Tree have been implemented, okay? And basically, this is it. So, very cool. Actually, it is pretty good, guys. Honestly, there are still BRs that need to be changed, still BRs that need to be, readjusted and stuff, but it is a start. The decompression really will help. It will help be more efficient for you to grind, a little bit better for you to not suffer too much with higher tiers. And especially, guys, I think it brings, I mean, these are obvious, right? But it brings new BRs for aircraft that you can bring aircraft into. I mean, like I said, if you're playing 12.0, why would you bring an aircraft that it's 12.7 right now, right? Before, there was no point of not bringing a top tier jet when you were at 12.0. Now it will have, a difference. So it has more of a linear progression to the aircraft and a helicopter that you use, meaning that in the lower BRs, you will not see so advanced aircraft. Like, for example, when you are playing in a lower BR here, an 11.7, you will have less of a chance of seeing very advanced aircraft, and of course even helicopters. You will not even see them anymore, right? These more advanced helicopters that are fire and forget and stuff. So very, very cool. Let me know in the comments what you think. I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Thank you all the patrons and members. Always helps a lot. And my guys, see ya.